This is the most demoralized I have ever seen the Pro Tour players. So with that, let's break down what happened at the KCWO Wide Open and why it was the best course for spectators and the most hated for players. And with the disc golf world not being able to film this year, let me tell you, I was the only one that was filming this entire event, not on the Pro Tour. So be sure to subscribe. It was so much work. All right, so this is the first time we get KCWO Wide Open back on tour as an official Elite Series event, with the last one being, I believe, 2019, with totally different courses. Now, having said that, there's been a ton of pros that have played the KCWO Wide Open since then, notably Gannon with an 11 under in 2021 at the Bad Rock course. So it is no surprise that he totally dominated this time. But because the tour is pretty slow to adopt new things, we didn't get to see this as an Elite Series until this weekend. And let me tell you, it did not disappoint. There were so many spectators just on round 2 alone. There was probably 1,000 people watching League Card, and that is not something you get to see with hardly any other event. There were so many people commenting saying, this is way better than Emporia, way better than Music City. And I have to wholeheartedly agree. This is what I've been asking for years upon years. And obviously I'm a little bit biased. I am from Kansas City. I've played Bad Rock tons of times, and I've gotten wrecked by Bad Rock also tons of times. But I'm so happy to see a course that fully embraces woods, narrow shot shaping, and a ton of OB. And really the cherry on top was hole 12, where the assistant TD, Michael Kruger, gave an homage to Gannon's insane throw over the trees where there was no clearly marked OB, leading to Gannon's head on hole 12. If you want to see more about that, check out this video 2 years ago. I probably don't sound as good, but still worth a watch. But honestly, the interesting part of this event was not actually who won. Holland and Gannon just totally crushed, so it was no surprise that they won. So having said that, let's try to break it down in under 30 seconds. On FPO, there was no European players, so the entire skill ceiling was pretty low, with Holland definitely being the highest rated player, and it was no surprise that she did win. But the real interesting part of FPO was Cadence Burge showing up at so many points, especially in the final round. And it is not to say that Holland did not play great. She had so many great putts, a lot of great drives, but Cadence is a young up-and-coming player, so to see her fight back again and again in the final round, and at so many other points for a course that will totally demoralize you, it was very exciting to watch. And I know the commentators said there was no official nickname, but I believe it should be the Burge Khalifa because her skill ceiling is so fucking high, with a style of throwing that is very similar to Weatherman and Eliezra. She also seems to have a very competitive edge, and in very much Silva fashion, every time the camera cut to her, she was like, can you just go away? I do not want to be filmed right now. But whatever, she ends in second place. And for MPO, obviously Gannon crushed, but we'll get to that later. So on to the course. Bad Rock Creek is in Liberty, Missouri, but I started hearing about it in 2021. But I believe it is a true testament of fair skill, with only a couple of exceptions like hole 5, hole 12, hole 17, and a couple of artificial OBs that do create a little bit of a 50-50 lottery shot. Either you get it or you don't, and you're heavily penalized for every shot that you miss, very similar to Northwood Black. But having said that, Gannon has shot 11 under a couple years back, like I said earlier, and shot 14 under in the first round. Are you kidding me? And it's not just me. Tons of fans and spectators alike say that this course is truly epic, offering an incredibly nice mix of wooded and open holes, with basically every single hole offering a different challenge that is doable but still very difficult at the same time. And to me, this is why this course is perfect on tour. It is truly a testament of, can you make an executed skill shot? Nothing about this course is impossible. Every single hole is birdieable by pretty much 90% of players. And I feel like hole 9 is the perfect example of that. I've played this hole and I've thought to myself, I would love to see Calvin throw this exact shot because I'm sure he could make it look super easy. So in round 2, I made sure to see what his shot looked like on hole 9. And like I predicted, it was dead easy for him. But this is because he is so precise and so good at a straight and narrow hole. This is a shot that tons of pros just do not have in their back pocket. And so even though this is a very gettable hole, I saw so many players hit the guardian post or hit an early tree. And so this is exactly why this course is a 10 out of 10 for me. Every hole is a new skill check that you cannot get out of. There is no way around throwing a precise shot. And that leads very nicely to why this course was hated by so many pros. I don't think I've seen the pros demoralized in a more tangible sense than on this course. I wasn't really watching much of Gannon's destruction because I can't really film League Card, so I saw pros again and again and again hit early trees, miss their shots, get totally out of position on nearly every single hole, even though they are great players. And I truly think courses like Northwood Black are a little bit hard for the sake of hard. I think every hole here is gettable, which is probably why it is so frustrating for all these pros to miss their shots again and again. They know they can hit the lines, They know it's not that hard, but when those mistakes compound again and again, and for a lot of the wooded holes, once you hit one tree, you are so out of position for your next shot. And so I saw so many players basically crumble. They still are pros, they still finished out pretty strong. I saw that in spades throughout this entire event. And I know a lot of pros, specifically on holes like hole 17, think it's just so gimmicky, but this is actually a very interesting shot. Can you throw a forehand roller that goes straight for 200 feet and then sweeps hard left? This is probably not a shot you've thrown that often, but it is definitely a skill check that a lot of players have that you probably just don't get tested on that often on tour. And I think another factor about why pros did not like this course is because it takes a lot of time to understand the nuances on every single hole. Like hole 12. So many players throw this shot and hit a tree in the first 100 feet. Now, obviously, a big factor about that is just not throwing straight, but I think this is actually a lot more about risk mitigation and knowing your disc. Because if you truly practice this line again and again, I bet you will find a certain disc on a forehand that gets you most of the distance you're looking for. But it takes time to actually see these shots into fruition, and a lot of these pros only play the courses for like maybe once, twice, maybe 3 times, and so I'm sure they'll get way better scores next year. But this is almost certainly why Gannon did so well, because he knows all these shot shapes, and he knows not to underestimate any single hole. Because much like hole 14, so many players take this hole for granted. You are confronted with a blind 300-foot shot, and I was trying to rack my brain, and I don't think that's a shot we really ever see on tour. And so to see that twice in one course really shows you what we can do with modern disc golf. But because Gannon is so automatic, his form is so perfect, there's no part about hole 14 that is really that much fear for him. And when you can actually trust your line, you know you can get to the basket without having to worry about going deep, going into the water, which is actually a lot closer than you might think just watching coverage. And to me, that's how we got that 1095 14 under from Gannon. And since he can throw 450 without any extra effort, he knows he can get it right up to the pin and land exactly how he wants it to. And so that is how he was able to consistently get birdies after birdies on all these holes, while so many other pros floundered just to get par. But so let's get to the last point. How did we even get to this course being on tour? I actually think it's a very interesting question. There are plenty of people that love this course and love Kansas City instead of Emporia. And a lot of people said they love this way more than Music City, and I could not agree more. To me, it all comes down to the age-old quandary about the Pro Tour. We've done it like this before, so why would we change? I distinctly remember last year while playing the KCWO Open, the tournament director was putting in his application to make this course on the Pro Tour. And it really was that basic. It was just a simple email to the Pro Tour stating how they want to make a bid for the 2025 season. We often think about these courses having a massive deliberation and a huge series of discussions being made to decide what events go on tour. And while I believe there are massive efforts from volunteers, directors, everybody alike making these events happen, I still believe so many of the courses on tour have been continued on tour because it is just what has been done in the past, and they really don't want to start a new trend. But this is another great reminder that there still is so much great disc golf in Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Courses like Blue Ribbons can be amazing on tour, but it is all a slow process as we try to figure out parking, reception, all the necessary tools to make a great touring event. And there's actually another Pro Tour course in the area in Kansas City made by Eric McCabe, but for somewhat arbitrary reasons, it'll probably never be on tour. And I want to introduce a new segment, the Vibe Players of the Weekend. Never really made a huge push for the win, but were just so fun to watch. First one being Harry Chase. He was so good the entire weekend, but having watched his practice round and a couple of throws in round 2, I truly think he is one of those players that could be a top 10 pro. And another player that had a throw in on hole 1, much like Casey, Zach Melton, had an insane round. Zach Melton looks like an insanely different player than the player that I thought he was. I followed him for maybe half of his round. Every single shot shape that he had looked dialed. I don't think he's ever really going to crack top 20, but it was really cool because I really think about Zach as like kind of just like a funny dude that plays disc golf occasionally, but having watched him, he's actually really good, even though people don't ever really give him credit for being that good. And last up, Jesse Nieminen. I've really liked his playstyle before, but having gone up close and personal to his throwing, I think it's just so clean, so pure. He'll never be a top distance thrower, but he has such a good control of the disc with very clean forehands that it's just very satisfying to watch. But hey, let's soak it in while we can, getting another amazing course on tour that almost rivals New London and some of the European courses. So as cheesy as it sounds, I truly think this course can revitalize what disc golf looks like, at least in the Kansas City area, with so many casual players coming to see this event. It truly was the biggest crowd I think I've ever seen in a round 2, besides the Course Worlds. But what do you guys think? I'd love to know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.